Greetings from India. So welcome back to another video tutorial. If you remember in the last tutorial, I built a small house rental grid layout form, whereby the original form looked like this, a contact form 7, which had several fields to capture various information required for a house rental business. And the problem with the contact form 7 form is that it doesn't really fit on the page. It's a little bit cumbersome to scroll up and down when you're filling in the form. With the smart grid layouts, a much more compact form is possible. And this was the form that I completed at the end of the last video tutorial. Now, what I want to explore in this video is dynamic drop-downs. In this case here, you can see that I had set various optional facilities that are actually often very difficult to maintain when they are a static field. So here's an example. Here we have these kitchen facilities and these home facilities. But what happened if in the back end we actually wanted to put in multiple values, optional values? So just for the sake of an example, let me just copy these, and let's say that we had hundreds of options potentially. This quickly becomes very difficult to maintain. As you can see, these are all text fields in quotations. You forget a quote and the whole thing breaks down. You might repeat some. Very difficult to actually maintain such kind of field. And I've actually seen this quite often within contact form 7, where people have, for example, list of countries or or cities for address fields, and you have hundreds, potentially thousands of these options, and they very quickly become very difficult to maintain. And if you look on the front end, we are going from this to something like this. Let me reload this. Here's the kitchen facilities and the one I just did with the house facilities, and you can see these are huge lists, which just becomes unmanageable whatsoever. Plus the form just does not look usable either. I mean, who's going to go through a list like this? So what we want is a drop down field, ideally to handle large values. But what we really want to do is to be able to leverage the content management functionality of WordPress to even do the maintenance of these lists. And what better way to maintain such kind of contents using taxonomies. Taxonomies are built for this. These are lists of values which are easily maintained, can easily be edited, can be searched through. And as a result, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could somehow grab a taxonomy, a list of terms, and populate our drop-down field? Now, this is exactly what the dynamic drop-down allows us to do. Here's the dynamic drop-down tag, which is introduced in the smart grid. Now, how do we go about this? Let me switch over to a form that I had already created. Here it is. So this is the same. No, this is not the one I want. Sorry. Smart grid. That's the one. Yeah. So this is the same form, but as you can see, I've reorganized it with the name and the contact number at the top. We still have the adult guest names and the children's guest names as text areas. And here I have created a dynamic drop down. How do we go about creating this? Well, there is a very easy way to do this. Let me just delete this so I can repeat this. Here we go, dynamic drop down. We give this a name. So this is going to be our kitchen facilities. It's an optional field, so we leave that as it is. And here is the drop down. So we can have a default HTML select field, or and this is quite useful in such kind of cases where we have a long list, we can select and build a jQuery select to, which is a very powerful alternative select field, and you will see soon why it's so powerful. And if you want to read more about it, you can follow this link, and it'll describe in more details what can be done with a select to drop down. We can have multiple attributes, but we want. We do want multiple attributes in this case, because they can choose more than one kitchen facility. And here we can choose the source. Where is the drop down list going to be sourced from? So the options are taxonomy, post, or custom. So for this example, we're going to start with taxonomy. We can create a new category, but we're just going to use an existing one, which is the post categories. And in this case, we just insert this. Now, if I do this, so let me update this. There we go, and let's see what it looks like in the front end. So I've already set up the form with the shortcode in a page. Here it is. But because we set up the dynamic field with the categories taxonomy, well, all the terms are appearing here, including those from the house facility. So if we scroll down, we have things like so we have the where are we? Ironing and board, the house facilities, the DVD player, and here what we want to show is only the kitchen facilities. So obviously we need to actually filter this list so as to include only the kitchen facilities. If we go back to the dashboard in the back end and we look at the categories, you'll notice that there are two sets of categories here which are set up. One is the house facilities and the other one is the kitchen facilities. Now the kitchen facilities has got an ID of 6. You can see down at the bottom of the screen the URL which this links points to. You can see the tag ID equals 6. So let's remember this. Let's take tag ID equals 6 because we want only the child members of this kitchen facility, of this term, to appear in our drop down list. In order to do this, the smart grid, where are we? Where is it? Back to our form editing. The smart grid, here we are. The smart grid includes in its grid editor the options for filters, PHP filters for certain fields that I introduced. So here, for example, we have a text area, but there is no possibilities to filter a text area in the back end. Here, the dynamic select has a couple of filters that are built in, and you see this little PHP tag appears automatically when you insert a dynamic select. And by clicking on this, you are given the set of filter that can be used, and one of them is the taxonomy query. So we're going to use a taxonomy query. This filter is quite handy. Just click on the link, and this will automatically copy the helper code to your dashboard. And now we can paste this into our functions.php file. Here's the function PHP file that I'm currently using, running on this setup under my theme. Here is the function PHP file, and I'm just going to paste in the helper code that I got from the grid editor. And you can see here it's calling this taxonomy query, which is a filter. There is the automatically the function is being built up for our kitchen facility. So these little functions are automatically built by the helper code. So the kitchen facilities, we have the query arguments being passed, which we can filter. We have the name of our field, and we have the unique key that identifies this form, and the little helper code will automatically put in a check to see that this is a correct form and the correct field that is being filtered. Otherwise it just returns the arguments in case you have other dynamic select fields within this form, and so therefore you make sure that you're not filtering the wrong field. Now what we want to do is we want to actually have the child terms of the term with the ID equal to 6. So we're going to change this to 6. This is going to set the parent ID to 6. And let's put a semicolon. There we are, and we save this. And now we should be able to get in the front end drop down. So let's refresh our form here. And if we scroll down, we have bottle warmer, kitchen scale, microwave oven, mixer juicer, oven, toaster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 terms. Let's see if these are the correct ones. If we go back to our categories, and the kitchen facilities got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 terms, which is correct. So we have all 6 terms that are now appearing in our form, and we have the correct set of fields, list of kitchen facilities being displayed. And the real nice thing, remember, this is a select to jQuery field that is being constructed. The nice thing is you have a small search functionality. So for example, if you want to see whether a toaster is available, just start typing TO and the toaster option comes up. Select the toaster. Maybe we want some let's see, a mixer juicer. Is there a mixer? Yes, there's a mixer juicer. So we can select one of these, and automatically the options are being registered in this field. So this is one of the way to build a dynamic drop down from the smart grid. So let's look at some of the other dynamic drop down sources which can be used to populate the dynamic field. And we're going to look at the next one, which is the house facilities. So I could do the same thing. I could also use the post categories. We have a list of house facilities under the post categories. I could use this. But what I've actually set up is I've created a series of posts which are representing my house facilities. And this could be handy in the case where you want to actually have a more descriptive facility in terms of a post rather than category, where you want some pictures and a description or something like this, and you want to populate that into the list. So let's see how we go about doing that. So here, let me just delete this again and start from scratch. Let me add a new dynamic drop down. We are going to call this the house facilities. We're going to make this multiple. We're going to select the jQuery select to, because this is got that handy little search functionality. But this time, instead of selecting the taxonomy as our source, we're going to choose the posts. And the post basically can be any post type that is currently existing. And you can see I got different type of post types that are present there. So we're going to select posts. And we're going to include post links. These are going to be pretty useful. And finally, what we can also do is we can select a particular category of posts. So if we have posts which are categorized either as tags or as categories, we can select a particular category of post. And in this case, all of the posts which are house facilities are categorized under the house facilities term. So I'm going to choose this. So in case I had other posts which were not house facilities, then I would make sure that only the house facilities are listed in my thing. Now let's insert the tag. So here we have the source coming from the posts. Update. Lovely. So here we have our house facilities are now coming up as posts. And if we move over to the form and we refresh this form, we can see now that these are actual, the list is coming from our posts. And if we select one of these, the newspaper is not linked. Why is that? Oh, I forgot to include the links. Enable links. How is that? I don't quite remember. That's not what I want. Dynamic drop down. If I enable links, permalinks, this is what I want. Okay, so we need to include permalinks in here. Okay, updates, go back to the form, let's refresh this. Yes, and now you see the newspapers are appearing. Let's just do a cache refresh. So we start again from scratch. House facilities. These are actual links now, but let's put iron and board. And now the option is being selected as a link. And if I were to click on one of these, I can open into a new window the actual posts, which is showing an image of an iron and board. This is just an example of what you could possibly do with the with this kind of dynamic drop down, which is being populated using posts rather than custom taxonomies. Now let's explore a little bit more about these custom dynamic drop downs. Let me just include a new field for the sake of this example here. I'm going to put a dynamic drop down. Now the other option that you can choose is a new category of taxonomy, which is non-existing, and the plugin will actually create this category. So let's call this some cities. So we have London. So the plural name would be cities. The singular name would be city, and this would be house rental cities. Okay, and we'll make it hierarchical. And now we insert this this tag in here, and you will notice that now then when I update the form, so once I've updated the form, you will see here in the information box of this specific form, you have a link to your cities. So, and these are specific dynamic lists. The taxonomy which is created is being associated in general with the contact forms, but is not used to classify the forms anymore. It's simply used to leverage the power of management of lists that are provided by taxonomy within the framework of WordPress. So here we have created a custom taxonomy for this field called cities, and we can edit the cities, we can edit the list and manage our list from within the form by actually accessing the edit page over here. So I'm just starting this in a new window, and here I could add London, add new city, Paris, add new city, Delhi, and let's call it Accra in Ghana. Why not? There we are. So let's say we have these 4 lists. Now if I come back to this form and I just update this and we go to our front end, now when we look at the front end, you can see that this drop down here is now populated with the cities, the terms that are part of the new custom taxonomy that we created in the back end. So this is how you are actually able to create dynamic selects drop down with a custom category, and the custom category can be used is registered with the contact forms. It is actually used solely in its functionality, solely for its functionality to manage lists and automatically populate them within the dynamic field. Last but not least, the dynamic drop-down allows you to build a list of options programmatically using a filter hook. So I'm going to demonstrate how we can do this. Let me add an extra dynamic drop-down list here. This is going to be a custom list, and you see here the source that we want is the custom source. And what happens here is that you now have to copy this filter. You simply click on the link and copy this filter across to your functions.php file. Let's insert this in the form, custom lists. And now if we go into the front end and we reload the form, we see the new field that we've added here, but currently there is no options available, simply because we have not inserted the functionality required to actually build this list. So let's see how to do that. So we now have to paste the code we copied from the filter link into our functions PHP file. So let's just paste that in. And as you can see, this helper code is already filled in for you. We have the correct form here, and we have our correct field name that has already been pre-populated for us in the helper code. So this basically checks whether this is the current form that is being filtered and the current field, and if either are false, this function simply returns the options as they are. Alternatively, if this is the field that we want to populate, at this point here you would actually be fetching the data that you want to use to build your list. This data would come directly from the database, or it might come from a set of values in the meta field, or a list of posts, or whatever it is that you want to actually list out. For the sake of this example, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to populate this data variable with an array of values, so as to demonstrate what we want to do. So I'm going to have the values first. So this needs to be the data is a set of labels and options. Right, and of course what you can also do is you can build up option labels and option groups in order to actually build up more complex lists. If you don't know what option groups are, you should look up a select an HTML select field. Google HTML select field, and you will be able to find out how you can group options together in a select field. But for the simplicity of this example, I'm going to remove my option groups, and I'm just going to have the data as a set of labels and values. So here the data, there we go, as label value. So this is the label, this is the value, and each options should be an array. And each option should therefore be an HTML option construct. So let's set our options to empty line to start off with, or you could possibly do a default value. So select an option would be the label, and we would have option value equals empty, and here we go. Okay, so this would be a default, the first line of the option. We can tag on a PHP end of line constant here to make sure we have a new line that's gets started after each one of these. Makes it cleaner for the source code if we have to debug the HTML source code at some point. And then what's going to happen is it's going to iterate through the data and pick up each of these labels, place them into the option element, and for each of the values, place these as the values. And then once the options are built, we're basically returning it through the filter function. Now let's see if this works. So now we have to reload this form. And what do we have here? Still no results. Okay. This is not plus equal. This should be a dot equal. Let's reload the form. Does it work now? Ah, yes. Now we can select an option, and I've made a typo in the value of option. Okay, so here we are, and you can see that we have the select fields which are being populated according to what it was in the array, which is option 1, option 2, option 3, and option 4. While because this is a select to construct, we also have the option to search for some values. So you can type some text and it basically summarizes, and this is really useful when you have a very large set of lists for you use to actually search through the values. So there you go. This actually lays out how to use dynamic fields within the Smart Grid plugin. Thank you.